Hello, everyone. Welcome to this morning's episode. From the human staircase of perception and beyond. And what could the human staircase of perception be? As one human being in a universe of a billion trillion stars, so far when I look at my life, my memories are their meaning. It's as if every memory was an experiential staircase, as if every moment had a significance in regards to where the next moment was going. I would say that we are a journeying intelligence, and memory is the additional design of the world. That means I could look at any object, and in accordance to what sort of exposure to sensory perception the attention has had, you can visualize its deviations. That means I could imagine, for example, a cup from my childhood, and I'm looking at a coffee cup right now, and I could totally see this same coffee in that cup. That means as if once you climb a staircase, when you look back, you can see all the stairs. You can see all the steps. And so we are perceiving creatures. We are creatures that really the purpose of life is to perceive and move on a very basic outer realm level. Just look around you and do something. But on an inner level, the significance and the question of the perception, it's as if once you go up the staircase of different perceptions, you are left somewhere. Now I want to bring in this idea, which part of me feels I shouldn't, but it's the whole deal with philosophers and the idea of the ivory tower. That sometimes when one wants to perceive in a more concentrated way, they must isolate. That means I can tell you, if I didn't have moments of loneliness and solitude in my life, I would never, in some sense, I wouldn't question my own perception. And there is a difference between what we perceive and what is really there. That's the biggest difference, I would say. That it's as if, like, when we are perceiving something, it's like there's the limitation of the biological organism. For example, snakes, I don't know, snakes see in infrared, dogs see in black and white. Excuse me. Now, that means the biology gives us a sort of sight, and it isn't the most accurate sight, but it is a sight of some sort. So in some sense, perception has limitations in regard. This is incredible. The perception is limited to the body's design and the mind's effort. That means imagine you climb one staircase and you stop the staircase. You stop trying to perceive more. Do you know? Your reality is based on the effort to move from the position you're in. As if, think of every person right now. We are existential creatures and we experience our existence. So Everybody is on a staircase of perception. And now some people can choose to take a step forth or take a step back. There's been many moments in my life where I had a desire, I had a sort of unique perception, inner perception, I would say, a vision of the outer realms from the inner realms. And when I came to implement it, it didn't happen. In some sense, it was as if it wasn't the moment. So I find that it is our perception that makes us treat the world like a puzzle piece. Our perception is between the unknown and the known. But what is actually out there? We are either saying we're perceiving reality, it's like we know it, we know what's going on, or we have no clue, sometimes it's I'll be honest, like people make me laugh. Like when I notice things in the outer realms, sometimes I laugh. Sometimes how I notice the outer realms makes me laugh as well. Sometimes the perception I'm in sometimes is silly. So we get a snake, let's say we get a dog, we get a human being, a bunch of other animals and creatures that have different perceptions. And we put, let's say, the Mona Lisa in front of these animals. Or let's say let's say we put like another human being, right? Now the human being looks at the animal, okay, check this out. Most of the animals, they are going based on instincts of their ecosystem. So you can say when a human being changes their behavior, and that changes the behavior of the ecosystem, the animal's instincts or sort of evolutionary programming activates. That means it's like you're sitting on a chair, and when somebody pulls that chair, you suddenly get up from the perception you were in. So the human being will look at the human being, see a human being. The rest of the animals will look at it and just see a dissonance from the environment. Our minds give us an ability to see our bodies separate from the world, but the minds of many other animals does not allow that. That's why their individualism is not individualism. Pretty much, this is going to sound hilarious, but most animals are just the weather. Most animal behavior on this planet is just like the weather. It changes with the weather. But human will, human interaction, the human attention, it has surpassed. It has surpassed the weather. We wear jackets. We use umbrellas. It's as if we saw the world change and we wanted to change at our own pace. That's the thing. We are changing at our own pace compared to all the other animals in nature where their environment changes them. That means we have more choice. Therefore, we can notice perception and the what is actually there as different. But most animals, their perception is what is there. And you can say even in human beings, I mean, anger is that. Anger is when you have misinterpreted the moment. Trust me, anytime a person is angry, something is misinterpreted. Or something is lost. I would say that losing something brings anger. Losing an opportunity brings anger. Now imagine if this life was an opportunity and the person didn't utilize it properly and then they got angry at themselves. Could it be that we are angry eternal moments? Somebody's like, hey, so what was eternity like? And the person's like, it was angry, man. It was angry. Imagine eternity being angry at how temporal it is, or when it was temporal, didn't realize. I mean, there's two viewpoints, really, I find. There is a viewpoint of ascension, there's a viewpoint of descension, especially when it comes to intelligence. And there's different rhythms, I guess. When we look at it from descension, we were at a better state It's as if like we were collective, we were pushed towards individuality. We were individual, we were pushed towards collectivity. Right now, we are individuals being pushed towards collectivity. But there was a moment where we were just nature. We were collectivity, and then something inspired us to push towards the individual. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe like in 1,000 years from now, people start getting tired of being individuals. It could be the case. You see, right now, the person is like, imagine you had to um, walk a very long way, and one of your friends with a motorcycle saw you had to walk, or you had to go a long distance, and that friend gave you a ride. So it would be as if like it's as if you don't have to walk. When your friend gives you that motorcycle ride, you don't have to walk. And I feel this feeling of not having to live life but wanting it to still be lived, it's just going to lead towards the technological replacement of the biological. That means laziness turns us into robots. But there's advantage to anything. I mean, if you are if you care enough for something, you will see new dimensions to it. If you don't care enough, you won't see dimensions. If you care for your let's say you have a child, I personally don't, but let's say you have a child. If you care for that child, you will get access to the mind of that being. But if you don't care for a human being, it's as if you have dismissed the position in your mind. This is why I actually think it's really hard to speak in public. Not because it's hard to speak, but because there is so many perceptions, and there needs to be a care of what is there in front of the person. That means it's like, imagine we were panpsychists. Imagine suddenly, maybe let's take it even as far as Shintoism, where we think all matter is a vessel for a highway of souls or something. Let's entertain that. It would be a situation where you would care if you realize everything has a mind. It doesn't matter if they put a plant in front of you, if they put an insect in front of you, if they put an inferior animal in front of you, or there was another human being, a superior animal in front of you. It doesn't matter if it was an extraterrestrial they put in front of you. It's as if it's like when you, in some sense, decide on the context, you can treat the moment as a concept. It's like suddenly looking at someone and realizing you can trust them, and then you open up. Your whole personality opens up. But if there's someone you don't trust, your personality closes. This is very true. Anything you stop caring about, you leave, your soul leaves that moment. I mean, poetically speaking. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that creaturehood brings with itself a perception. Now we are that unique creature that has choice when it comes to its perception. A lot of creatures don't have choice. And we are in this world thinking there is suffering. It is true, Buddha said there is suffering, but I don't see this as suffering. We could have totally been unconscious of our suffering. That means evolution could have totally designed in a way where pain wasn't registered. So this is why suffering, it's as if it's never here. It's as if we misinterpreted the story of the realm. Because it's like the moment the person becomes less responsible for the realm, they don't have access to the suffering. That means, I'll give you an example. Like, if you're on a ship and the ship is sinking, okay? And if your strategy is to get off the ship, okay? Some people are, let's say the Earth is a ship. Buckminster Fuller, Marshall McLuhan, They called this planet of ours spaceship Earth, as if we're 8 billion crew members of a planetary motion. So on this spaceship Earth, our perception, or let me just finish the metaphor of the boat. Some people, they get off the boat. It is so easy not being on a sinking boat and then caring for the sinking boat. It is only when you're on the sinking boat that to care for it is like its responsibility. I feel that there's no such thing as suffering. There's higher levels of experiential responsibility with existence. That means we are here thinking as people, oh no, we're suffering, it's going to end, oh my God, the pain, the da 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 da, the inefficiency. But it's as if this inefficiency is just an opportunity, it's just a phase. It's as if, like, in the middle of a roller coaster ride, it's like, what opinion can you have, really? Somebody once shared, I forget the man's name, but it was one of the most incredible uses of the imagery of a mountain as a metaphor. You see, like, it's a very common metaphor. People can see, yeah, get to the top, get to the peak, but the idea of the mountain is that every step is a different view. That means, check it out. People think success is teleportation. Success is a journey, I find. And I feel that if you are looking for success, you'll never find it. Success is one of those things, I feel it is best that it finds you. That means you are at the service of your future success, but you are not your future success. I honestly feel my mind is enlisted in universal activity. That means it was not enough to just conceptualize the world and let it be. The advanced communicators will change the world by realizing that by advancing communication, the story changes. And I sit here and speak, you know, but all I'm doing is I feel I am defending the unknown. I feel strangely that love is light years ahead of the intellect. I feel the intellect is energy. I feel everything I know as a being has from the beginning just been an energetic expression. And so really how we choose this energetic expression to be released becomes the person. There's this idea in karma from the Vedic standpoint, as if, think of it this way. Think of it, karma is like an ocean. It's like an ocean where every step on the staircase of perception is a drop being added to it. So imagine right now you are different drops in, let's say you're different drops. Every experience from the Vedic standpoint, I mean, the creature is being considered to be beyond time. This is why the idea of reincarnation makes sense, that there's some dimension to the being that is not in the observable universe. It's in the unobservable universe. We tend to call personality what's in the conscious observable universe, and presence that which is in the unobservable unconscious. It's more like where the conscious is standing in everything that it doesn't know, really. That means all your knowledge is standing in the unknown, including mine, every word I'm saying. And every word every human being is going to say on this planet, or has said on this planet, it is literally like just splashing paint. Those modern artists, I would still consider them, I would say this is creative laziness. You know, creative laziness is like an artist that doesn't feel like painting but wants to make a masterpiece. The artist just puts the canvas on the ground, goes on like, I don't know, a 3-story building and just drops paint. Can you imagine? It's like, yeah, let me make 100 works of art at the same time. You know, you just put empty canvases and you just splash paint from above. You know, that would be a sort of creative laziness simply because there isn't the conscious positioning. That means if the person had at least an accurate sense of dropping the paint exactly on the right location, then that would be different. That wouldn't be lazy creative. But I would say pretty much it's like this: anything you don't look at, you can't pass through. That means if there's a door in a room, but you don't notice that door, then it's as if like there's no door in the room. Okay. All right, guys, I'm back. So, to continue with this idea of perception, really, I am simply seeing as if like an emergence of a possibility to be individual. After that possibility of individual solidifying, we have built everything in accordance to that. I would say it is true that there is such a thing as knowledge, But I would say every person has to realize that they are receiving all knowledge, everything that could be known, through the filtration of themselves. That means you are choosing the how much your sight, your consciousness in the moment has zoomed in or zoomed out. That means if your face was a camera right now, you know, let's say your face, you looked in the mirror and you're like, yo, is that you saw like this red glow and you're like, oh my god. Can you imagine like we're cameras and the third eye where there is that like where usually it is dotted, that dotted third eye position is like the camera record button turned on. Can you? I would say we are gathering perception to step into the next perception more smoothly for now. That's what survival means. But I would say when I ask myself, life, why do you want to be seen by so many eyes? One view is that there is no humans here ever. There has never been human beings or even human perception. There has been just nature's strange movements. Or the human being is not the human being, and there is levels of individualism not from here. That means if you really wanted to create a secret in this plane of existence, the biggest secret would be that consciousness is never here. It's never started from here. That means think about it as if, like, again, we take the human brain as a sort of camera. Sorry, not as a camera, as a projector. Okay, let's say a projector. Camera also projector. Imagine they're mixed. So we have a camera projector. um, Anyways, I would say it would be something where the projector is projecting, let's say, from a computer not in the room, or let's say you're playing a show from some streaming software, some streaming application, and it's as if like the content, it's as if it's remote. It's as if like our minds are somewhere else, our bodies are here, we are moving our bodies. Technically, it appears in our mind, but it's not in the world. That's saying that to be in the world but not of it. That's another way of saying like you're here but you're not. So this could totally imply that if we choose to see life as a story, you're just setting yourself up for infinite stories, really. That means if I take the human story seriously, then I gotta take the galactic story seriously, then I gotta take the universal story seriously, then I gotta take everything seriously, then I am, for the end of time, a character in a story. When am I gonna reach that unknown moment where the question of all phenomena comes again? On some level, it's like every person's life is a motorcycle, let's say, and you're choosing the speed and the direction. Now, some people, they even choose to, not just the direction I'm in is based on how far you see the world. So, if you think it's only objects here, you're at max. Your character can have an object-based purpose. But if you are noticing that there's more than an object here, that means it could be that my speech is not from an objective source. That means matter is just an antenna, and we've been treating it as if it's our God. Because for me, there is no such thing as the idea. This may sound like a bold statement, but I'll tell you, like, I'm saying this respectfully, there is no such thing as worshipping. That idea, there is no. It's as if everything is a verb. You know, when everything is a verb, there is no verbs. So we are under the impression we're in a noun and the verb is unknown. But I would tell you, we're inside a verb and we're interpreting it as nouns and wondering why it doesn't satisfy. That means if this life is a movement, then we can't define ourselves based on stillness. Can you imagine? Can you? This is gonna be hilarious. But imagine like uh, I don't know. There is something about the human being where if you look at a bee, for example, like I'm not saying the human being is an insect, but but it's literally we are behaving like ants. We are behaving like bees, you know? And we don't realize that we are a creature designed to extract not just objects from the moment. You know, there is this idea of inner treasure revealing. I feel this is something from Tibetan Buddhism. I gotta tell you, the idea came to me from Tibetan Buddhism. The concept of inner treasure revealing, that there's treasures that have nothing to do with the conditional object. What does that mean? That means if anybody has found the inner treasure, you look at the outer realms and you realize they are just masking something. You know, sometimes I think about it, if we treat ourselves as natural beings, desire is extraterrestrial. Desire could be unearthly. To desire anything, even. You can say even desiring to, because you see, it's strange. It's like through certain mystical traditions, I would say, or Buddhist thought, it's like here's a riddle, a question. It's like when a Tibetan Buddhist, a true Tibetan Buddhist practitioner, sees a child being born, are they happy or are they sad? Or I wouldn't say sad, but are they pleased or unpleased? So, from the Tibetan Buddhist perspective, reincarnation in human life, it's as if like the person couldn't make the slam dunk, you know? So, the inner treasure would be a release. And I would say the reverse thing that's going on is as if like the Buddha was actually a genius. People don't realize how smart the Buddha was. The Buddha saw that all of suffering comes from conditions of image. That means really what the world is we're an actor in a film, whatever we say. Even if we experience some sort of non-dualistic perspective of our perception, I say. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, regardless of that, the human actor is on stage. That means a known actor on an unknown stage. Or, if you want to get really metaphysical about it, an unknown actor in a known world. That means, what if you are new, but everything else about the world is familiar to you? That means, let's say poetically, right now, we can say we are a sort of, if we were to entertain mind body dualism, we are saying we're like this unknown mind moving a known body. Or we can say, excuse me, guys. I would say perception, I would start from here. Perception is really form. And it is and form translates to us as color. That means there's form, there's color, there's space. In perception, form, color, space. There is also emotions in perception, but they don't have content. They don't, not that they don't have content. They're like it's like they don't have a form. So from form, color, space, and I would say unknown emotion, we get perception. And the thing about perception is that because we can have different perceptions, it's not set. It's not set in stone. That means our eyes can never be the truth because they are a small part of this vastness. That means we are strangely designed, I find, in this universal sector to not be able or capable to see the whole thing. So because it's too big to see the big truth, we are left as the small, as an individual, as the small, we only have access to small truths through creaturehood. That's what I'm saying. We don't have access to macro truths. And even if we do, it's like we can't, it's not the whole picture. That means it's like, imagine an ant became conscious and an ant wanted to understand like human politics. Like, not only it would take such a long time, but it will never be able to understand human politics because it is not human, right? So what I'm saying is that the search for big truth really is empty, is an empty search. But small truths and how the small truths aren't here is the, I can say, proper truth. Is the proper approach to the big truth. That means it's like whether it was the poet Rumi or Elon Musk. The poet Rumi says your task is not to seek love, but to get rid of all the barriers you have made against it. And then we have Elon Musk talking about running a business that it's like one approach to running a business is that you don't think there is no failure, you actually assume there is failure. You assume your business is going to fail, but you reduce the chances of its failure. You reduce the percentage of of the failure. You can say it's a more humble approach rather than, oh, I got the best business, I got the best thing. Yeah. So I would say, philosophically speaking, rather than trying to find the big truth or constantly considering, yeah, I got the big truth, we gotta literally see our small truths and wonder how they are not our small truths. And small truths are perceptions, you know? And there could be, we could say, meta perceptions, which means memory is being infused with the current perception of the moment. Because really, we can't say our memories are physical. Like what I see in front of my eyes, I can touch, but if I close my eyes and envision a canyon, I can't go and like touch the stone of that canyon, touch the rocks of that canyon. So you see, the inner realm behind our eyes, we are what we see. In front of our eyes, we are in what we see. So the moment we go within, poetically, it would be that we are, it's like, check it out. You're either small looking at the big, or you don't know you're big and you see this how you're not this small. You know? That means it's like there's a level of storytelling going on over a very silent world event. That means the world is happening, and then there is another room over this world where through language we have built something over it, really. And what's interesting is that, let's say an invention, let's say Edison invented the light bulb, or Alexander Graham Bell made the telephone, you know? So what would that mean? That would mean Alexander Graham Bell had the perception. That one moment he's like, yo, what if there was some object I could hold, and there was some object another person could hold, and we could speak through it? So from a perception in the inner realm, he actualized it in the outer realm. Then the perception from the outer realm influenced again the perception of the inner realm. You know? It's kind of like building something, then turning it on and seeing what happens. You know? Imagine you built a robot and you turned it on and the robot moved and it made an air. Then you would turn it off, rebuild it, then turn it on again. And that fascination to constantly turn on reinvented perception, to activate reinvented perception, really. Because that is what living is. Unknown dimensions are changing how the previous analysis of the whole dimensions work. So we can say, like, there could be this view, there is nothing physical ever, and physicality is a perception. It could be that everything is only physical and non-physicality is a perception. We can treat it as if we are the hallucination of atoms, or we can consider atoms are the hallucination of this unknown presence of energy here as the being. In the subtitle, I've written unknown patience. That's, I think, where we're going after you're no longer an object and subject to yourself, and you're noticing the living event. You know, it's like asking your eyes, hey, sight of existence, what are you doing here? And imagine existence turns back and looks at you and it's like, what are you doing here? There's this, of course, it's not a, this is meant in a humorous way, but there is this story that there was this holy man, and this holy man suddenly found an audience with God and looks at God and says, God, why did you create this worm? Like a worm in the ground or in the dirt or something. He's like, why did you create this such meaningless creature? You know? And then the voice of the divine says, the worm asks me the same question. Why did I create you? So you see, the world is just, it's like a hall of mirrors. Oh my God. Guys, it should be audible because in my stream, it shows this bar, this green bar that moves. You know, if people would like to support the Patreon, maybe better. But anyways, to continue. Pretty much, It's just, life is just a moment, like a point of energetic attention, and you evoke accesses. One axis, like when I come to speak, usually that's what I do. I look at a topic and then I evoke accesses and I look at it again. So let's say a person wakes up. One approach is quickly find out what is simple, what is complex, prioritize that way. One can choose to prioritize what is unknown and what is known. One can choose to prioritize experiencing life as an individual or experiencing life as a collective. I would say not all human beings on this planet are here to be individuals. So what it means is the behavior is slowly moving towards some sort of collective presence. So if right now I entertain that I am, okay, let's use the term. Let's say I am a soul. And this soul is being this body, and this body is being here because of the world, and the body is being the world. So the soul is like the unknown experiencing this amount of the world. So technically, if like imagine human beings were like trees and our feet were in the ground or something, you know? I mean, that's a ridiculous example. Let me say it this way. Imagine we were connected to the earth. If we were connected to the earth, we are the earth, right? Now that means we don't realize it. So we can say the evolution of the soul is to be a planet. The evolution of the soul is to be a planet, imagine. So all those people, where am I going? What's the mission of my overall essence? You know? It could be that technically right now the soul seems to be, if we entertain the idea of an additional, pair of sight from another place. And something that just occurred to me, what's strange is, if you fast forward life, you get to emptiness. If you rewind life, you get to emptiness. So the meaning, cultural, psychological, human meaning, is from emptiness we have arrived. So the creatures have opened their eyes in the world, they've named everything they could see, and they are considering that when they can't see anymore, that is emptiness. So we can say there is two types of emptiness. What is empty to the self may not be empty to the world. This beautiful nature we see could be a curtain. I feel cyberspace is literally the archaic revival of the mystic. Literally, it's the same pattern. It's secular spirituality. You see, the mystic and the religious person, there was a difference. The religious person did not see themselves in the driver's seat. The mystic did. That means I could tell you the mystics of this planet are the bravest human beings. Because they are in some sense wondering if the world is here or not. You can say if you're wondering about the soul only, think of it this way. Some people are trying to wonder if they're a soul. Some people are wondering if they are the soul of the existence, all of it. Now that's a totally different question. It means like the human animal goes through a nihilistic and solipsistic phase, you know? So much of this world is communication to a point where I look at the educational system and I'm like medical science and communication, language studies, the most important thing. I would say if we were to shorten, let's say, as a basic necessity of every human being needing to know something, ASAP, like pretty much that's the educational system. It's thinking what does the emergent human being require before it actually expresses itself in the world. Right now, educational system is possessed by the economical sector. It doesn't have a mind of its own. There isn't enough uh, nobility and honor. That means anytime, anywhere where there is a lack of honor, there is a lack of care for the overall outcome, corruption comes, just spreads like fire. That means when the energy of the human being doesn't feel like it's going anywhere, it can abandon. That's corruption. That means, let's say you were a carpenter designing the greatest table, and somebody comes and says, "Hey man, don't be a carpenter." You know, it's like nobody needs tables. Factories make tables. Forget it. And so imagine that carpenter stops making the table. That is corruption. Corruption in a core, corruption of the first natural impulse. You know? So you can see corruption anywhere actually. But the point is, while we're here, what's the most efficient thing we can do? I would say the words intelligence. I would say there's no such thing as stupid people, and there isn't smart people either. This is like illusion. This is like a theatrical image of it. But what there is efficient decisions for all involved and inefficient decisions. That's it. That means if human beings they did not entertain any story but still wanted to have a moral system, it's simply just efficiency, inefficiency. And inefficiency is as if you can say ignorance of the self and ignorance of the world. That means any system, any ideological system that cares for the world and cares for the self, it cannot, it's literally, it lives longer than any other ideological system. Ideological systems that don't care for the world, they in some sense, they don't stay around. I would say the greatest source of energy on this planet is not to fall in love with something. It is in some sense to rise in love in nothing. Every person's DNA is literally a brush with a unique paint on it. And so if the human being doesn't care to express the inner realms into the outer realms, then why do you have it? Why do we have minds if we are only here to live as bodies? Why do we speak if there is nothing else to see? Do you see what I mean? There is something more. It's as if it's just about defending the mystery in an information war. In a war where information is putting people in certain formations. Your information you have suggests who you are really. Your eyes are you. And believe it or not, your eyes are also the universe. Do you know how advanced human communication can be? Do you know that one of the only strategies towards an advanced civilization and to just better karmic collective activity, I would say, is simply that we open the valves of the inner realms onto the outer realms, but not through chaos. That means technically we can't get rid of chaos because the order defines itself with it. But I would tell you what we can do is tell chaos to go into cyberspace. You see, imagine human beings in the future all are being vacuumed into a computer. Just imagine that. Imagine in the future there's this giant vacuum cleaner, but it's this cyberspace AI mind, and we are being literally vacuumed into it. So now we are noticing things are being vacuumed, so we're like, okay, so everything's eventually going to be vacuumed. At least we are here for a little while. What kind of life can the civilization have? Can you imagine? Can you imagine that every human being has two types of service on this planet? Service means something from you is going out, is being given to the world. Okay? And let us say there is an object based service and there's a subject based service. That means you require to contribute to the body of civilization by living as the most advanced possibility of your own mind's fathom in the outer realms. And in the inner realms, the contribution requires to be expanding the subjective horizons of the species, nothing else. I would say it is true that the ego, people have fought it, people have tried to get rid of the ego, poor souls. I would honestly say it's as if like Iron Man inside the Iron Man suit, Tony Stark inside the Iron Man suit, and suddenly like trying to break the Iron Man suit and set himself free. All he has to do is press one button and exit the Iron Man suit, or just give an instruction and exit the Iron Man suit. The Iron Man suit of the species is language. So if that language can change in an instant, we as human beings, I would say for the first time, can be incredibly optimistic. We are like bees, but we have to in the future build the hive in outer space, interstellar cities and civilization. I was speaking to a very shamanic friend of mine named Jim, and he said something so interesting. He said this world is like a training ground. That means I've heard some people say it's like an educational planet. I've heard some people say it's like a prison planet. I've heard some people, you know, speak about it in different ways personally myself. But also, this was a very interesting view where it's a training ground. That means I could be making the error in these talks that I'm speaking about as if this plane of existence is the front lines, but it could actually be this is just like Navy SEALs training for the transmigratory soul beyond time. You know? Like okay, this is interesting, guys. Too many people have said this. Too many people have said this idea of something being implanted into the human. Wait. Are you talking about? Let me tell you. Don't let yourself walk in a world of fear, or you will instantly fade. You're giving yourself permission to break before you know what's going on when you give into fear. There is this view that just like how a seed is planted in a soil, the human being is set into motion in the world as an activity, as a conscious activity in a unique way, in a certain way. I was saying that it, I never actually finished that metaphor, but I was talking about karma being like an ocean of drops, and the wave of it is the fruits of your karma now. So as if it's like just the fulfillment of the camera metaphor, where you've been recording different perceptions. All these perceptions become oceanic. So right now you are actually not having one life. Your unconscious mind is being every life fathomable. So in one dimension, poetically, I should say poetically, but like in one dimension. The beautiful thing about poetry is that the moment you feel like it, everything is like poetry. But what I'm trying to say is, as if in one dimension, the unconscious is everything. But in another dimension, the conscious is only one thing and doesn't know what to do. So I would say at the edge of your mind, you are an ocean of endless lives. But in front of your eyes, it is the ripening of the fruits of karma. It's like, out of all the things that you can be, you are this. Out of all the ways I can, as a human being, my mind has been introduced to speech, I'm speaking in this way. And let me tell you, I threw away the hammer that I used to judge myself into inefficiency with. I threw away that hammer years ago, even before I started this talk, because there is something in life that, because every day happens once, you can't regret it. Because the moment you regret, endless probabilities of how the moment could have happened, you can see. So if the person chooses to look down on themselves, all the ways that you could be less are being activated in your unconscious. If a person looks up at themselves, if you actually look in the mirror and it's as if you honor what you see, then that activates. You can say all those stems in the unconscious activate. There's a very incredible Zen story. There's this man, there's this Zen sage who's living alone, this incredibly liberated and realized person. And so he was living at the edge of town, and this young thief has come into his house. So it's that moment where this kind of like silent hermit, comes to his cottage at the edge of like the mountain, or like at the edge of town or something. So it would be he comes into this cottage he has, and he literally has nothing. He's living like ultra minimalist, right? And so he sees the thief is there looking in the house, and the thief is like this young kid, and the young kid freaks out, and it's like that moment where he's caught the thief, right? But there's nothing in the house, so the thief hasn't stolen anything. And so the Zen sage looks at it, it's like, why is this young kid stealing, at night, And so he sees this, and he does something strange where he takes off like this monk robe he has, something that could be sold for money, and he gives it to the kid, and he's like, you've come a long way. Please take this, and so you don't go empty-handed. As if this human being, for a second while his house was being robbed, forgot himself and looked at that kid. As if he had a treasure that could never be robbed, so for the first time he could look at others. So the sage gives the clothes, and the kid's like, "What is this guy, stupid or something?" And he takes the clothing robe. He's like, "Okay, this is something," and he runs. And so you realize in the story, the kid is just some poor person who doesn't know what else to do. You know, it's like you. It's like sometimes life can be cruel, and that gives an authorization to the ego to be cruel too. But those who withstand life's cruelty, I would say you deserve the only salute. So he gives the robe. There goes my notes. I would say, really, I am just talking in a silent void. And I would say there's dimensions to life that you can't know who you are until you've gone through the experience. The ultimate goal of human effort in the outer realms should be to place an advanced civilization that cares for the individual like itself. We should create the efficiency, a sort of fractal civilization where the individual literally is treating itself like a mini civilization. So that would mean the most advanced civilization human beings can make is in the image of the human biology. We have to literally start building our civilization like a human body. It's like the most incredible masterpiece. Where right now all the different nations on the planet are like different brains, different parts of the brain, and we develop the global brain, you know. And then once we have the brain, we need to work on the heart. This is all those people living for compassion in the realm, you know. Pretty much we gotta use some outline, right? So at least the biological body could be a good example. Imagine somehow the educational system could cause the child before finishing middle school having as much only medical knowledge as, let's say, a doctor. Somehow we found a way to teach children just biology from the beginning, just about the nature of the body, its complexity, and all of this, you know. And then we had all the you can say all the minds in the academic system unite on one frontier to connect all ideological systems to a metaphor of some body part. That means we are using the letters of the alphabet, okay? Or we would say, I would say, it's as if letters are symbols drawn on paper. I'm saying, why don't we create a language of knowledge connected in the image of the human body, where when you study about, like, I'm telling you, it would be the most incredible thing, and children will have knowledge of health, and then they would comfortably be able to go in any task or whatnot. Do you know? And imagine you looked at your hands, your 5 fingers, and there was a sort of ideological overall macro system where all of knowledge you could see in your body. Do you know? Everything that our species has found so far in the image of the human body. There was this show where there was a character named in it called the Professor, and this character, what he does is like I just remember this one sentence from what he said, where he's like, I don't let my emotions bypass my thoughts. I don't let my emotions bypass my thoughts, as if we have a choice. Ladies and gentlemen, we can choose how much we allow emotion into a moment. Just like how a painter chooses how much paint to pour on a canvas. We are human beings. We are on some staircase of evolution. Each staircase gives us a certain perception, but we can also be mobile, turn around. You know, you can see the value to your life based on the past. You can see the value to your life based on the future. When I look at the past, I'll be like, oh. I just look at the past and I'm like, oh, it's past. You know, thank God it's past. You know, I look at the future, you know, and I look at it and I'm like, thank God it's inconceivable. Do you know that means if truly a person, let's say the human mind can get fragments of the future somehow, but let's say if the person was to know the whole future, you wouldn't. The pressure of the future would crush the person now. To be honest. So it's as if like we are in a forest of perceptions. Pretty much we're perceptions hovering around. We're subjects moving objects. And for what goal and what aim? And do we even need to see it at this depth? Like, does it even serve? And I would say, how long can the ostrich keep its head in the dirt? For how long can we fear the unknown when we're designed to just explore? Any person who believes in anything, just keep in mind that that belief becomes a filter. And what can be said about beyond the staircase of perception? I would say this would open up a totally new branch of philosophy where we are treating, let's say, and as for example's sake, a two-dimensional reality as the alphabet of a three-dimensional user. So what does that mean? That means there is a branch of human psychology that is when the human archetype is actually already has dissolved into an oceanic energy. I would say oceanic view of energy. You see, if I choose to see energy limited to my body, yes, that means as I'm speaking to you right now, I'm standing as an object. I mean, I'm sitting down, but like I'm here standing in the world as an object. Okay? This object has an energy in regards to food, in regards to, what the person uh, gravitates towards, like hungers for. But I would say this, just because I have a biological body doesn't mean I'm not standing in other ways in this moment. Do you see what I'm saying? Your mind is standing here in a way that has nothing to do with your body. And let's say all the fears of the body were actually, you pulled the curtains and you saw what it was. I would say understanding is the best way to get rid of fear. That means it's like they ask the person, why did you, oh, you're so brave. And the person's like, listen, I'm not brave. I'm just, I just inquire. I just want to see what's underneath the hood of the engine. I want to see what's underneath the hood of the car to see the engine, for example. That's not courage. That's just, you can say, foolish curiosity. Not foolish curiosity, but that's just exploration, you know? So you can even say to counter fear, it's as if like, think of it this way. Think as if you knew everything in a room and then something appeared that didn't make sense, like something out of nowhere appeared in the room. Then you would have to know what's in the room for the fear to go away. The antidote to fear is strangely knowledge. So if we fear chaos, the whole antidote is just open your eyes a bit more. Can you imagine? Imagine every time the person was afraid. I mean, of course, guys, I'm speaking very playfully about this. There is serious dimensions to everything. What I would say, I'm just saying that sometimes it feels that fear can be like a hand on your face, and you don't know where that hand is. And unless you move that hand from your face, from your eyes, you don't get to see what it is. Guys, I would advise for people in the chat section as well, don't give a voice to fear. It has no source. That means when I say it has no source, that means it's like its perception. Let's say you're a human being in a situation in life where you don't know what to do. Sometimes you just have to endure. The body is designed to break. The mind is designed to never. This is why the only way beyond the mind of this planetary sphere is to untouchable reverse engineer towards the untouchable, reverse engineer to the to the unhappening, to the ineffable, reverse engineering towards the ineffable. Or the inconceivable. That means inconceivable means you have realized you are in conception, because there's something more of it. We say inconceivable. We are in what is conceivable. So knowledge should be taken, of course, playfully, and should be seen as the tip of the iceberg if all we can see is a certain electromagnetic range and frequency range, and at the same time the observable universe. That means, why does that word exist? Shouldn't everything be observable? That means the moment we have unobservable universe, it means everything is consumed. It's like an onion where the inner layer is knowledge and the outer layer is unknown. Guys, in the chat section, I've written a statement. Actually, it's good to comment on it. The statement: fear is anything that pushes your attention out of your control. That means literally right now, if my attention at the speed of light just moved to, like, let's say, journeyed half the planet, then it would be like I would have fear, because literally the body is no longer in control. The mind is moving faster than the body. You know, technically our minds are perceiving at the speed of light. And people think human beings are slow. You know, it's like on some level you can feel like a incredible warrior where you have been wielding the speed of light with your eyes, just moving your eye, opening your eyelids. You are controlling the speed of everything in the observable universe. Again, if it's the tip of the iceberg, we're all just playfully moving language, creating language. So there has to be a retaliation towards this. It's as if like nature has made its chess move. It has thrown itself in an unknown world, or an unknown self in a known world, whatever you like, you know. Your attention is where truth can only be to you. So the attention becomes a priority. Wield your attention honorably. Honor means when you don't know, you don't know. When you know, you know. I would say that's the what comes with honor. You know, it's as if the person tried. It's like ordered. You know, it's like, how do I order honor online? And imagine you order the honor, and it's like it takes 30 days for your honor to arrive. You're like, oh, 30 days. You know, might as well just relax. Yeah. Imagine your greatest self is running towards you right now. Imagine the most advanced way you as a being exist. It's like that version of you is running towards you. You know, whether you know it or not. You know, and there's going to be a moment where you're going to see the inseparability of the inner of mind and matter. And when that moment happens, there is just, I will tell you, silence and stillness have become your tour guide. The nature personally communicates to you. Imagine you're a guest in nature, you know, in the house of nature. And so the host is missing. The host is not here right now. So imagine you're a guest and a lot of the guests are freaking out. Some guests are acting like they own the house, you know, and the host hasn't arrived. We don't know where the host is. And some guests in the room, they've just found their true nature and they've sat in it. They're waiting. And so let's say the host arrives and the host sees that some people who are acting like the house is they're not the guest in this world. They're not a guest in this world. They're acting like they own the place. You know, the host is going to be like, what the fuck? They're not going to care to see the host. Because if they see the host, what they have acted to own will become void. That's the thing. You know, that's true renunciation, I would say. Where you don't freak out and just endlessly desire. I mean, that's so like soul Newbery. It's like there's, you know, your advanced souls and there's noob souls, you know. Can you imagine? It's like the prophets of religions opened their eyes and they're like, look at these noobs. I'm joking, guys, of course. Of course. You know, I'm just a creature here for a little while making some noise that perhaps could be translated in ways that serve. So imagine the host one day, you're just walking around. It's as if like some people are destroying the. Okay, let's go back to the metaphor again. Let's say some people, a group, 8 billion human beings, they've been invited on Earth. Let's entertain this idea. And so we are guests, and imagine we're all dressed in properly. Everybody is born properly, you know. That means it's like philosophically, I will argue to the end of time. We are all born originally. That means there is an origin. You care for it, your originality will exist to you. Anyways, so 8 billion guests, and these guests are, some of them are destroying the house, some of them are acting like they own the place. Some of them are just scared in a corner of the house, not moving. Some of them are attached. They've sat on a chair and they've never moved from that chair in the house. You know, and some people, they've realized, all right, the host hasn't showed up. So they're walking around and they're not per se touching anything, but they're looking at what's in the room. What's in this existential room that we find ourselves in this human position, you know? So what happens is, imagine this guest that has looked at the room. Eventually this guest looked at the room and was like, okay, I saw the room and the host isn't here yet, and the guest goes back and sits on one of the chairs. So it's kind of like that Zen enlightenment full circle, let's say. Now, let's say you've sat on the chair, or let's say while you were standing and looking at some of the things, the host saw you. The host was like, oh my god, you're not destroying the place. What's wrong with you? You know, and you look at the host and you're like, I've been waiting for you, you know, and you celebrate. You know, what if truth is a celebration? What if it's on the emotional range of the most ultimate celebration fathomable? You know? What if you find the source? And imagine you have a conversation, you know, with the source of your existence. And the host says, you ask the host, why is this? Why is all of this here? The host smiles and says, you accepted the invitation. What that means is we are here. It's like human existence is invite only. So so we are here because I find that there is a discussion, a work to be done. The host of existence is holding a meeting. And we, as the eyes of the universal sector that have opened, instead of taking the room so seriously, we should look for the host. You know, and the host is not an image, is not an idea. This is where both, you know, I find secular audiences and religious audiences are looking at me. It's like, who is this guy? Because I am telling you, language is not God. The message is not the truth. It's just the finger pointing. The truth is inconceivable. And if it's inconceivable, man is acting like God, which renders impossibility. What I'm saying is the idea is just, is it alive or not? And some people believe it's alive, but only with a certain mask on, you know? And some people, it's never alive, you know? They don't care to see a mask. So what I'm trying to say, guys, with this idea of the host is not some sort of spiritual obstacle course. I am saying simply, imagine there was nothing wrong. Imagine there was no chaos. There was no need for a disciplined order. Imagine everybody from the beginning was in heaven, or some sort of paradise of technological supremacy or whatever, you know? Whether the heaven is cyberspace or not, you know? But let's say everybody was in heaven. Imagine nobody had to do anything and everything was okay. There would be no purpose to life. That means it's like you can say, we are the vehicle Matter is a vehicle for space. That means, let's say there's an intelligent space and non-intelligent space. If the intelligent is, how is the space intelligent? It moves what's in it. So what it is we've seen matter as alive and dead, animate and inanimate. You know what separates a human being and an object? Now let's wonder if space can be alive. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows what jersey I wear. It is. Space has a soul too. Imagine, It's like, do you believe in the soul? Yes. But the person says, yes, but the soul is space to me. And the person's like, what does that mean? You believe you are space? And imagine if there was 0.000 whatever amount of zeros you want, 1% chance it was. Let us not fear the world, wherever it is. So temporary, yet our dreams are so eternal. Our eyes open, close, and we can accept it, we cannot accept it, but either way, it all goes forth. That's it. I would say the final purpose of life is just 2 words: go forth. So imagine, let's say, guys, I feel really I've shared the imagery I wanted for this episode. I would just try to somehow sum it all up as, in front of our eyes, the purpose of life is to see the most advanced potential of human design. Which equates as 8 billion creatures organizing for the sake of the ultimate outer realm revelation. That means it's as if, imagine you're a coach and your species is like the players on the field, okay? Now imagine 8 billion coaches at the same time, all the coaches are players as well. So you would look at this and first ask, do you want, what kind of players you want on this field? And so imagine the first thing happens. We realize the host isn't here. Okay? And we attain secular peace. The world is so big that there is actually, if we live efficiently, we can simulate heaven on earth. It's possible. Guys, I just remember there was part to the Zen story that I didn't share. After the Zen master gives the rope to the kid and the kid runs away, the Zen master goes outside, there's a full moon, he sits down on the grass and he looks at this dewdrop on straw of grass, and he looks at this and he looks at the reflection of the moon in the dewdrop of grass and he says, wow, what a beautiful moon. Look at this beautiful moon. Do you see? That is what the truth is like. It is strangely, I find, our eyes have a permission to endlessly walk. And behind our eyes, the eyes have, at the attention can endlessly be. Like I could literally, like I wrote a script called Clone Kid. The character in that film. So many trees to climb. So many attitudes towards life. You know, it's as if every human being has a box on their head, including me. Every human being has a box on their head. And imagine some human beings have been able to take the box off, but when they have taken the box off, they can't. For them, it becomes insanity to live in a boxed world. You know. But I will tell you, imagine you took off the box from your head, and then you made 2 holes in it. You know? And you are still wearing the box, yet you are moving in accordance to a different sight, different level of sight. And I would say that is the awakening. There is one awakening happening, and it's the awakening beyond language. The linguistic simulation is collapsing, and we are alive to witness it. And what's going to replace this collapse is not the effort of language being forgotten. For the first time, we will be creatures that are journeying towards the collective mind. Therefore, we are becoming the language of the gods as we abide by nature. And so it's as if we are experiencing imagine every memory you have had since the beginning of your life until now was like a coded message from a dimension beyond. And because we couldn't see every memory, every perception as a letter in an alphabet, we couldn't understand what the void was trying to say to the world that's here. There's a Tibetan saying that it says, unless you conquer anger, Tibetan Buddhist saying, unless you conquer anger, your enemies will be inexhaustible. That means if you are looking at this world with hate, what do you think is going to happen? If you're looking at this world with fear, that means imagine like the world is a store and the person is like, what do you want? And the person, if you fear this world, it's going to give you fear. You know, it's like you're asking for fear. If you love this world, it's going to give you love. If you seek the intellect, it's going to give you the intellect. And what it is we're just piloting, and we are never just one state. Is it really hard to realize we are just natural? It's like, does a squirrel on a tree need to be a rocket scientist? It's just natural. We are dressing up in subjective individualism, but we are just presence. I would say if we were really honest with ourselves, we'd say we have no idea what the self is, and we have no idea what the world is. So technically, it's like nothing has happened since the beginning. We have the same ability as all of our ancestors did to look at emptiness, to look at the void, and then see what can be here. Let's say. If you want fear to be your leader, it can. But most likely, any system that has it, like, if there is fear, there is most likely like betrayal. There is like, I don't know. There is something that we choose what kind of energy we move as. You know, I could sit here and think of myself as a completely defeated person. I could sit here and look at myself as a person who is already victorious. I could sit here and realize before I have an opinion, there's an endless potential for opinions. And then we return to that silence and stillness of nature, where for me, I would say what made it easy was I had what in my, like if I, my earliest memory is of me being in a room without any identity, language, or anything. It was just sight and moment. And that's the ultimate. That means one thing every person can do in this life is study how their sight is being their moment. It's like what greater teaching can there be? It's like, what teacher can there be even if the truth comes from within? So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I'm going to open it up to 10 minutes Q&A. Anyone who has a question or wants to throw language at me, you're welcome to. Okay. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope this episode was helpful. Uh, I encourage people to buy notebooks and start studying their own attention. I find it's a great way to, like, a notebook. When you write in a notebook honestly, that's like the best mirror for your mind. You know? Oh man. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Blessings.